Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside War Diary issue number 26, which will be shipping very soon to those who get the published edition of the magazine, and will be also shipping for the digital a little bit quicker because obviously you don't have to worry about waiting for the post office to deliver it to you. So look for that to be coming out pretty soon. So we're going to take a look inside and see what is in issue number 26. And as always, we start off with the prelude from our fearless leader, Roy Matheson. He's going to give us a rundown on what to expect in this issue, and he makes note of a recent Kickstarter idea that failed from Adam Starkweather, which was a unique idea. In this one, he tried to get a project funded for the game, but in a different way. Rather than getting funding for the production part of a game, he was looking for funding to assist with the design process. Publishing is the main thing that everybody does on Kickstarter, not the design portion of it, which was a unique take on it. But it did not make its goal, so that'll be something that would be interesting to see if Adam's going to pursue any further or not. Personally, I'm not too confident that this is a good path for a designer to follow, but it is definitely a novel approach and one that I'm sure will be talked about for quite a while. Then we get to our table of contents. We have several really interesting articles, as always, in this magazine. Start off with the British War at Sea, 1914 to 1916. This is part 1, A Tale of Bad Ships, Bad Leadership, and Jolly Bad Luck by Paul Combin. Then we have The War in the East, 2 game reviews by John Burt. Bitter Woods, Tips, Tricks, and Techniques for Fighting in the Ardennes. This is part 2 in the series by Hugh Smithers. Then we have Banish All Their Fears, Khan's House Rules by Claire Conzelman. A Glorious Chance, Naval Operations on Lake Ontario by Ray Garby. That's going to be his review of that game. Then we have Corvette Command, Designer's Notes by Alan Eagle. Autumn and Sunset, Reconsidering the Event Deck by David Kennedy. And then we have Pass and Review, which are the smaller capsule reviews at the end of the magazine. And we start with the British War at Sea, 1914 to 1916, which is going to go over several engagements. And of course, they're going to relate to the historical by way of discussing some of the war games that cover these topics. Games like Avalon Hill's Jutland, Battleship Captain from Minden Games, Royal Navy from Quarterdeck, and Raiders of the Deep from Compass Games, to name a few. And that finishes out on page 15. Then we've got War in the East, 2 game reviews by John D. Burt. Here, John will be sharing his views on Battles in the East, Volume 2 from Decision Games, and Traces of War from VUCA Simulations. Then we have an ad for Fortress Games, Bob Fanouf's company, that has come out with a string of really well-received and fun war games. Recently, they started boxing up their latest version of Save South Vietnam that adds some optional rules and scenarios. So that means I need to upgrade my Ziploc Folio version now and get that box, because hopefully they're going to also do the same with Save Afghanistan Comrade, because, yeah, I love those folios, but at the same time, I really like the boxes. Makes it easier to store them on the shelf. Then we have the next article, Bitter Woods, Tips, Tricks, and Techniques for Fighting in the Ardennes. This is the second in this series by Hugh Smithers regarding this game, where he's going to go over different strategy discussions along with tips and illustrated examples of what's being discussed. It's going to be some great analysis and things to chew on for players of this classic game. Then we have an ad for AHIX. On the next page, the next ad, this one is for Singapore from TKC Games. Then we have Banish All Their Fears, Khan's House Rules by Claire Conzelman. Claire's always looking for ways to spice things up with various games with different house rules, which is always a fun read, even if you don't have the games that he's discussing, because it provides you some good food for thought and how to approach other games that you play, and how you may apply some of the ideas and lessons learned from these house rules to adjust gameplay more to your liking if you choose to mess around with your own games. And we pretty much always do that with our games, because we always think we can make our games just a little bit better. Then we have an ad for the Historic Wing series of book games from Thomas Van Heer. An interesting note with these games is that, if you're not the artsy-craftsy type, you don't have to worry about getting this book game, downloading any files, and creating your own counters and maps if you don't want to, or really, like I said, you're not artsy-craftsy enough. And if you'd prefer to have them professionally done, the great thing is now the game components are being printed by Blue Panther. So you can get the game book, and then you can also get the professionally done components from Blue Panther. Next up is a review of A Glorious Chance Naval Operations on Lake Ontario by Ray Garby. Ray's going to give us his thoughts on this Gina Willis design published by Legion Wargames. And it's a solitaire game that the interesting thing is you can play both the British or the US in the game, which is fantastic, especially being that there's not a lot of games on the War of 1812 to begin with. Then we have a little ad for the Fetterman fight. Then we get to the Corvette Command Designer's Notes from Alan Eagle, where he'll talk about his design intent with this game, which was originally a free-to-play game on BGG, but has now moved on to being a professionally published game by War Diary magazine. And the art that I've seen on this is really fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this release. And there's an example of the art right there. I really dig the palette they went with on this game, which definitely sets the mood and the tone for the player. So it should be headed to the printers very soon. So stay tuned for more information on that game once it is hot off the presses. Then we have another ad from TKC Games, this time for Barbarossa. Then we've got David Kennedy's article discussing the event deck and the classic Ottoman Sunset game from Victory Point Games, now in a new edition from Tabletop Tycoon. This should be an interesting read because the card play is what drives the action in these State of Siege games, and it is one of those things that maybe a lot of people don't really dive into when it comes to the cards, because that is the heart of the action in the game. Then we have an ad for Dreaded Flags, Naval Conflict in the Ages of Piracy, 1568 to 1720. Always a fantastic subject for a war game. It's another game book, so you can play it by either using the counters that come with the book itself, or you can use your own miniatures, which is pretty awesome. And lastly, we have the Pass and Review with some capsule reviews. First up is The Forgotten War, the British Empire and Commonwealth's epic struggle against Imperial Japan. This is a book review by Andy Nunez. Then we have The Army That Got Away, the German 15 Army in the summer of 1944. This is a book review by Hans Korting. Then we have a game review, The Longest Trench from UGG, which is also by Hans Korting. Then we have another book review. This is titled Breakdown, The Crisis of Shell Shock in the Somme, 1916. This is also by Hans as well, so Hans has been a very busy guy. And there's the ad for Corvette Command that we just talked about from Alan Eagle, and that's published through War Diary. Then we get to our final review in the capsule reviews here. This is a book review by, yep, you guessed it, Hans Korting once again. It is the Hans show this month for sure. This is To the End of the Earth, the U.S. Army and the Downfall of Japan, 1945, as well as an ad for Off the Line, which is another really interesting looking game that's coming from War Diary magazine pretty soon. Then we finish out the magazine with a pair of ads. The first one is from Lock and Load Publishing for their upcoming release, JO87, Stuka Ace, and at the back of the magazine, we finish out with an ad for Invasion Malta, the latest release from Legion Wargames by designer Vance von Voorhees. And that is a look at everything you get inside of War Diary issue number 26, which is available now. It'll be coming out to people who are print subscribers pretty soon here in the next few weeks. And the digital subscribers should be receiving it as well here pretty soon. But I wanted to share a look inside with you guys. If you're not already a subscriber, this is what you have to look forward to. And if you're not a subscriber, like I always say, you're doing it wrong, because War Diary is the best wargaming magazine out there by far. It has got, as you see, a great selection of articles and reviews that cover a lot of different subjects and a lot of different games, pieces of history, and blends them together, making for fantastic reading. So if you're not already a subscriber, you should correct that and go over there and subscribe. War Diary, fantastic magazine, highly recommended. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this magazine. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.